And we're off. This is the great classic rock debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul with zero qualifications.
And I'm Steve.
We talk anything and everything classic rock. We try to keep it fun. We try to keep it interesting. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. Now we're going to get right into tonight's topic, which is David Bowie. I have to begin with a full confession. We did this David Bowie show about 2 months ago, and I forgot to click the record button. So we decided to put a little time in between so that we could have a fresh brains, and then we would do it again so that we're not just thinking about last time. But we're going to do it again. We're going to start with Space Oddity and move forward from there. And I told you guys at the time that what had sort of planted David Bowie in my head was I heard Space Oddity twice that week, plus Under Pressure. And I go, we haven't done anything for Bowie. We got to talk about him because he's a great artist. So I'm going to start things off because I'm the oldest. And
You are the oldest.
In 1972, I think it was, Space Oddity was originally released in 69, did not do well, but recharted several years later in 72, I believe it was 72 or 73. And I was about 12. And I can just tell you that as a 12-year-old kid, hearing that song on the radio, it was mind-boggling. It was chilling because it really, it was almost visceral, the feeling that you got listening to this guy out in space as he's drifting away and they can't do anything to help him. And the way that song is constructed, the atmosphere they create and the sense of isolation or whatever, it's amazing. You guys probably know that the term used within the broadcast industry for radio, they call it theater of the mind, because obviously nobody can see you. By the way, lots of DJs are not attractive and they love to say, I've got a face for radio.
That's right.
So anyway, theater of the mind. So what they do with that song, in my opinion, is amazing theater of the mind because they create exactly what you're feeling. They create that whole thing. So I was 12 years old listening to it. Everything sounds great. Major Tom is this hero. The whole world adores him. He goes off into space and suddenly something goes wrong. Houston, we have a problem. Ground control to Major Tom. Something's gone terribly wrong. So anyway, it was chilling. It was haunting. And I think that the intent was to produce all those effects, and it did. So,
well, hold on. Since you were alive, you would have been, what, 12?
About 12, yeah.
Okay. So 69, everyone in the world was talking about space travel, going out in space, right?
Right.
We landed on July, whatever, 1969, wherever we land on the moon.
28.
Right.
And then when did, I don't know off the top of my head, Apollo 13 happened? Did that resurrect the song?
That happened like in 71. And you know what? It probably did. It probably did. Because I'm willing to bet that there were radio DJs. Keep in mind that in 1971 or 72, radio DJs had liberties that they don't have today. Today, they are given a program list that they have no say in. They just play the songs and pretend that those are their choices. They're not.
They may not even be playing the songs.
Right. Back in those days, those guys built their audience by having the liberty to pick and choose their songs. And the guys who could draw an audience were playing better music. So probably somebody latched on to David Bowie's Space Oddity because of the Apollo 13. That probably reignited the second go around for that song, which obviously, the rest is history because it turned into such a big hit from there. But anyway, so you guys tell me like your first experience with the song and what you thought and how you felt and how you reacted.
You want to go, Steve? Go ahead.
We need to preface it with Steve was born in 77, so he would have heard it well after the fact.
Yeah, it was not a song that really drew my attention the first couple of times I heard it. And that's because, it would have been the late 80s, early 90s when I first heard it. But
right
after I gave it about 5 or 6 spins through the CD player, it really grew on me, and it just manifested into, I always have these. I would have loved to have made a music video for
Right.
that song. And it's my second favorite Bowie song, but it's
Okay.
probably one of the top 25 greatest rock songs of all time.
I agree. I agree. And it really gets credit for its sound, which is so unique. Now, there have probably been plenty of songs since that time that may have borrowed that whole atmospheric thing. But in 1972, I don't know of a song that sounded anything like that. It just had its own sound and its own atmosphere. And again, it created this image that was chilling for me as a
Yeah,
kid.
and for me, I keep thinking in my mind, like, I want to just create a music video for it now. Anyways, I don't know if one exists, but you guys,
I don't know.
we're all kind of
There's one where
sci-fi.
he plays, but I don't know if there's like a I don't know what they call it now when you just do a video that the actor or the artist is not in. I forgot there's a term for that, but I forgot what it's called.
It's called a
Okay.
music video.
Huh?
Short film.
Well, no,
Yeah,
because
I've always had this image of kind of I've always wanted to do like a 50s or early 60s kind of sci-fi movie. And I don't even have a story, but I just love the vision of a man in a space capsule alone in the Milky Way, traversing amongst the stars, and just the sense of emptiness and loneliness, and what
Right.
that person must be thinking, and being on a little rocket ship, and just having, to me, it's kind of like the freedom to go wherever you would love to in the universe, even though there's obviously some limitations,
Limitations, right.
and that's not really what the song is about. It's not really about the freedom of exploring the galaxy. But in my mind,
Right.
that's what I think about, and how great it would be in some fantasy world to do that.
Okay, so listen, because you said that, I want to go ahead and throw in this second part here, and that is, and this was something I was unaware of, but if you go to the video on YouTube, there's probably 50 of them, but the comments beneath the video, it turns into a discussion of the ultimate meaning of the song, which to me, it's like, I didn't know there was an ultimate. I thought the guy went out into space and something went wrong with the electronics or the engine or the communications, and he drifts off into space, never to return. But there is a second theory that he did this deliberately. He got out into space and gazed upon the vastness of space, almost as if he was looking upon the face of God, and decided, I want to be there. Like this, he was overwhelmed by this sight and then lost any desire to go back to Earth.
but in the song doesn't ground control. They make some kind of not snarky, but retrospective comments about the Earth, right? I've forgotten the. Don't they say something about it's not that great here? I can't remember. I don't know all the verses.
You know what? I don't recall now, because when we did it a month and a half ago, I had the lyrics in front of me, but I don't have it now. So I don't recall if there is.
Because there was.
But I think that interpretation was largely ignited in 1983. We talked about this before. Peter Schilling did what do you call it? A reboot. He did the song. It was called Major Tom instead of Space Oddity, but it tells the same story of Major Tom going out into space, and then there's a problem, whatever. However, at the end of the song Major Tom by Peter Schilling, it says coming home, okay? Which suggests he's returning to Earth. However, again, if you read the comments, they go, no. Coming home was his belief that he was going to be with God, going out into space. He's not coming back to Earth. So I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know the answer to any of this. It's wonderful food for thought, very provocative, but I don't know what the ultimate meaning is. But it just makes me appreciate both the original Space Oddity, and I appreciate the Major Tom version. Very new wave, very 80s, but I appreciate it. I think it's a good song.
I just want to add one thing. I love the countdown in Space Oddity. This starts from 10.
Yes.
And it's to the beat of the song. And that is,
it's haunting.
It's hard, and it's hard to do. People don't understand, like, to put that countdown in the song. I know it seems easy, but to time it up with the rhythm of the music, it's kind of an ingenious thing to do. So I don't
couldn't
know
agree more, Steve. Yeah.
any other song that could do that, or it's just natural and very odd thing to do. So
we're like, we talked about this before, like Kenny and Steve separately, and sometimes on the show, about you got to have a lot of confidence to take chances when David Bowie could just make a 4-verse ditty. And he didn't do that. He did that some later, and they were very catchy ditties. Nothing wrong with a ditty.
Right.
But he's like, okay, I'm going to do this crazy, weird, bizarre, messed up thing.
Right.
And I'm going to take my beatings. And he's like,
but that
oh,
was
they actually like it.
But that was half. I don't know if it's half, but it seemed like half the bands at that time were your 3-minute songs that played the same 3 chords over and over, or you had somebody like David Bowie or Pink Floyd, somebody who, I don't like the term progressive rock because what the hell does that really mean?
I hate that term too.
But you know, but they would do these. Not the Space Oddity is a 9-minute epic, but it is an epic song. It does give that sense.
Right.
So
right.
Where today you don't have kind of those epic songs anymore. It's 3 minutes.
No,
and done.
I concur. Listen, let me say this really quick. I like the term progressive rock, but the reason I like it is because, I mean, the term rock is a very general term, and it's a huge umbrella that almost everything falls under. Fine. But the term hard rock, which describes your Van Halens and your Black Sabbaths and your Led Zeppelins or whatever, okay, which is great. But when you get these bands like we mentioned Rush, we've done a couple of shows on Rush. Okay, Rush is excellent hard rock, but they're on a slightly different level. Okay, they are. I mean, some people may disagree with that, but there's a certain intellect to their music, especially to their lyrics, but to their music, that you won't see in a lot of other bands. Plus, Rush, especially in their early days, before they got threatened by their record company, especially in the early days, they would do those 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute songs. It was the entire side of a record. And that is what progressive rock was all about. The bands saw themselves as something larger than just all these other rock bands. They put themselves into the mindset of the great composers.
You know what? That's exactly what I was thinking. They thought they were Mozart or Beethoven.
Correct. And they may not have been, but that was kind of what their mindset was. We want to do something that we believe is larger and greater and perhaps ultimately more memorable. And so that was what they were creating. And a lot of it, to me, was really good. There's probably a lot that's not good, but a lot of it was really good.
Well, if you did the record company threaten Rush to make a good
Paul, tell them.
Oh, no, they said you're about to be.
We love you guys, but we have to make a profit.
Like when they had Spirit of Radio, it got airplay.
Right.
And they're like, give us more of that. And Rush like, okay. And then they made the Mount Rushmore of albums, moving pictures, and it just exploded.
Right.
And then, the rest is history. But
that's because they put that pressure on them.
Well, yeah. Now, here's something that we've never talked about, maybe. I have a buddy of mine, Matt. He used to work in the business. And he said there's some time in the mid-'80s, before that, when a label signed a band, they had no contractual grabbies to the band's tour money.
Okay.
But when a new band got signed in the late 80s and forward, the label, not only did they get your royalty rights, they got 10, 20, 30, 40% of your road stuff, your tour stuff. And as we all know, the tour stuff and the merchandise is where the bands make their cash. They don't make crap too much for the.
Well, back then, what I was always told was that they went on the road to sell records, and they made their money really from the selling of the albums. But now I agree, it's really that's their only source of income.
So Rush, going back to Rush, if Rush didn't get, it's like a cycle, right? Rush needed to get airplay so more people could hear it. Oh, I like that Rush, but my God, Via Strangiato is 9 minutes long, which I worship the song. But a lot of people just lose it after a minute and a half because people want that minute and a half ditty. Like they talked about that in the movie Memento. People like commercials. It's a beginning, middle, and end in the commercial in 30 seconds. That's the most Americans' listening habits.
Well, so, I don't know how often on radio. I know they have regularly scheduled commercial breaks, but I've never really listened to see like what minute past the hour are they having those commercial breaks.
It just depends. Like on this show that channel Kenny and I used to listen to, WSHE, one night the guy goes, yeah, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to put on live Days of Confused of Led Zeppelin because he knew he had like 26 minutes. So when the song ended, he goes, all right, everything's back to normal now. I made it out alive. And you guys got a Led Zeppelin live, so everyone's happy in this exchange. And
Right.
I was like, I was driving. Well, I've never heard Led Zeppelin Days of Confused on the radio before.
That's an 18-minute
whatever
track.
it is. The guy to go take a dump.
Yes. Let's not forget to mention the 20-minute live Freebird also, which I hope I'll never hear again for the rest of my life. Exactly. Right. Okay. We're going to circle back to David Bowie now. So what I want to do is I just want to throw out a few song titles that are from early and mid 70s. And we're going to just sort of follow a chronological path here.
Bowie songs.
Say it again?
Bowie songs.
Correct. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So Space Oddity was the one. I think it's fair to say that no one had really, outside of Great Britain, no one had ever heard of David Bowie before Space Oddity. And then it's huge. And now he has a name. And, his album covers were kind of weird. So nobody really knew. It's like, is he a normal guy? Is he weird or whatever? Because the album covers were always strange looking. They were never normal. Okay. So he had Changes, which I think is a great song. That would have been 72. Suffragette City, also from 72. Life on Mars, 73. Rebel Rebel, 74. You guys have any thoughts on any of those songs?
Let me go first, Steve. Bowie at the beginning was having problems selling 68, 69, so they hooked him up with Iggy Pop.
Correct.
And a lot of this stuff, he got from Iggy. Iggy showed him how to be a star.
Yeah.
And then if you know Ziggy Stardust, Iggy had all that stuff before, and and then the China Girl was actually an Iggy Pop song that Bowie covered and one of his big hits.
Right.
So, but it's hard for an artist because I think Bowie is just like, who am I as an artist? Right? Because it's one guy. It's not like Metallica. We're going to play heavy metal super fast and loud.
Right.
We all agree on that before we start playing. And Bowie's like, okay, I got me, and that's me, and I turn around and it's me.
Right.
Right. So those songs are all awesome. I love them. You just have to find your direction, right?
Right. Well, we mentioned before that one of the greatest things, there's so many great things about Bowie and his music, but one of the greatest things was stylistically, he was never predictable.
Exactly.
You never knew what the next album was going to sound like, but it probably was going to sound nothing like the last one.
That is correct.
Always changing directions and keeping you guessing. However, always making good music.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, is he ahead of us, of the public, or is he a genius, which is yes to both? But you can make the greatest song in the world, and if no one likes it, it's crap. Although, I hate to say that, but it's just, Steve, go ahead, buddy.
No, did we skip over Ziggy Stardust in the chronology?
Well, I mentioned Changes, Suffragette City, Ziggy Stardust, and
those are all that album.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed Ziggy Stardust. That is my favorite Bowie song. And
okay.
Kenny, you can correct me, but is Ziggy Stardust probably like the first kind of concept album? I mean, there's probably more if I think about it, but
that's always
when I mean the first for Bowie or the first period.
Maybe the first period, and maybe
yes. I can tell you that the one that is recognized. I don't have a strong opinion on this, but the first album that's recognized as being a concept album, start to finish, is Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay,
yeah,
that's a fair point.
Yeah,
but with Ziggy Stardust, that is probably, to me, that's a hard rock song. It is. It's one of the first songs I learned to play on guitar. I still love it to this day.
Okay, wow.
It's got to be one of my top 10 favorite songs of all time. And a long time ago, I wanted to make a short film on the spiders of Mars.
Wow.
I had like a 10-minute narrative movie set. It was a cheap sci-fi horror movie with a bunch of backwoods guys getting attacked by the spiders of Mars, and at the end David Bowie comes in and saves them all. So
wow.
It wasn't even a music video. It was called Buck and Buddy and the Spiders from Mars.
You know what's funny? Had you pitched that to Bowie, he would have probably done it.
Probably would have, yeah.
He would have said, all right, with God's love, we'll make this film,
Yeah, at the end of the day, David Bowie's going to come down in a spaceship and bust into these guys' house and blow all these giant spiders away with like a shotgun.
Yeah. Oh well, for me now, the most noteworthy thing of these consecutive songs there through the early and mid 70s was the fact that he was not a one-hit wonder. He made his big song, Space Oddity, and then didn't disappear. Kept cranking out more songs, good songs, by the way. Most people would say, okay, Space Oddity is still the one he's going to be known for. Fine. But making good songs so that you go, oh, this dude's talented. He's not just didn't have a freak fluke hit, but he's talented. Now,
we left out Starman as well.
Starman, you're right there. So, yeah, you're right. 72.
I want to make another comment. Oh, go ahead about Bowie.
Paul, go ahead.
He was British, and unlike any American, him, Average White Band, and somebody else were on Soul Train. David Bowie went on Soul Train,
right?
Because he respected and worshipped the black audience.
Okay, hold on, because before you go too far, because I was about to lead into Fame. Okay, so which that's another song that doesn't sound like any other song. It's so different and unique, and when you hear it, you go. The one thing you can't say is, "Oh, that song. It sounds just like." No, it doesn't sound like anything. Now, we all know that Motown was the R&B mecca of the 60s. They cranked out more hits than one can imagine. But by the 70s, the city of Philadelphia had taken over as the central point for R&B music. All of the big artists were either from Philadelphia or they were coming to Philadelphia to record. So Bowie, he's a Brit. He's listening to all this great R&B music coming out of Philadelphia, and he says, I want to do that. So he makes a phone call. And the name of the studios, Philadelphia International, I think is what it was called, whatever the name was, he calls them and says, I want to record there, and I want to work with songwriters and song producers. He gives them the names. So they schedule it. He comes over there. I think he had already written the song Fame, but they took it and did something completely different with it. You know, they put their fingerprints all over it. And again, the first time I ever heard it, I probably thought, okay, that's a weird sounding song, but pretty soon it's in your head and you go, oh my God, that song. So it became an enormous #1 hit. And it's just funny to me how those things happen, because at the time Bowie's making this call, again, on paper, it might have sounded a little crazy, like mixing ABBA with Led Zeppelin or something. This is not going to work.
Right.
But man, it worked and turned into one of the biggest songs of the whole decade. Go ahead.
I just can't think of an American, I hate to say this, a white guy that would have went and
Elton John, Philadelphia Freedom.
Not an American.
Oh my God. All right. I'm opening myself up. Just kick me in the nuts.
No.
Go ahead.
That's my whole point. Like the Stones went and recorded with all these Billy Preston
in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, it just like they I don't know what it was.
Well,
it was
when those guys were growing up, you know, you didn't have like the civil rights movement in
Britain.
Right.
In Britain, and they loved, you know, the blues guys.
They absolutely do. Yeah. Yeah.
So you just didn't have that. And
they weren't
in even the rock musicians growing up, I mean, it's all kind of blues based, but even the United States, but it just was a whole different mentality over in Great Britain.
Give credit to Allman Brothers. They had a black guy in the band. And so did the Doobie Brothers. So you got to give them credit for, like, they didn't care. Oh, can you play?
But especially the Allmans, because remember, these guys all got to know each other because they worked all of these mom and pop recording studios in the South. And talent is talent. Yeah, if you know that guy's good, you don't really give a crap, you know. So
nope.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So listen, we have to move quickly through the next couple minutes of Bowie, because we're going to shift gears over to Mount Rushmore. So let's do this. I'm going to name off a couple, you know, and I'm not going to be able to tell the story about life on Mars. I told that story last time about that TV show Vinyl, which I recommend so strongly. They had a guy on there who was sort of a Bowie look-alike, sound-alike, whatever, and he sang Life on Mars. And I went, wow, I forgot what a great song that is. And that's a song that deserves to be on every classic rock playlist. But by 1980, he did Ashes to Ashes, which took a turn towards the more 80s new wave kind of sound. 81 was Under Pressure, which he did with Queen. There's a whole story behind how that happened. I think they happened to be in the same recording studio just by chance. It wasn't planned. It sort of just happened by chance, and of course created history by doing so. And then in 83 was the album Let's Dance, which was a total renaissance. I mean, for Bowie, he was #1 on the album charts, #1 on the singles charts, selling millions of records. And he's now more popular than he was at Space Oddity.
Yeah, and we talked about on the show that never happened, but it did happen. It launched the career of Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yes.
Stevie Ray Vaughan was like, because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point, you know, he started being in movies, on TV,
yeah,
on the Muppets, I think. So
David
Bowie? I think so. Yeah.
On The Man Who Fell to Earth. That's a trippy butt movie, let me just tell you.
Yeah.
But he was really good as Nikolai Tesla in The Prestige.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think my first encounter of David Bowie was as a guest star on the Muppets when I was a kid.
Okay.
He was like he was.
Guest. No, he was like, I was, like 6 years old. He was like a guest musician on that.
Oh, no, I was just saying though, it's like funny. Like if John Lennon would have been on there, and I'd be like, who's that? He's not a Muppet. I know. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, that's pretty cool that kids, they would give that to kids. I'm agreeing with you.
No, they wouldn't do that today.
Also, we should mention just really quick, around 75, I think it was, he did a duet with Bing Crosby where they sang The Little Drummer Boy. And that had to seem like the most unlikely pairing at the time, even though you can pull it up on YouTube. It's actually kind of a moving scene to watch, but that song has now turned into a classic. It gets played every year at Christmas time, all over the radio or whatever. So, All
right, I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick. There's a song called E=MC² by a band called Big Audio Dynamite.
Okay.
They were the successor band to The Clash, one of the greatest bands of all time. The song is an homage to this British director, Nicholas Roeg. The song talks about 6 or 7 songs that he did, and one of them, Man Who Fell to Earth, and Don't Look Now, that horror movie with Sutherland and Julie Christie.
Yeah, it was good.
Natural. The same British director directed all these movies, but Bowie, and they were like, it's a really cool song. I don't know if you two have ever heard it. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's super catchy. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So that's a really fast run through of David Bowie. He continued making albums through the rest of the 80s and the 90s also. I forget what year he passed away, probably 10 years ago or something like
cancer,
that now.
Yeah.
But for me, just one of the greatest classic rock artists. Lots of variety, lots of great songs, and lots of really good, memorable songs that I never get tired of.
When we went through the list before, maybe we need to do that on another show. Go through the list. I was like, oh my God. Like I had forgotten, like Golden Years. I could that song. I worship that song.
Yeah.
So
we mentioned that scene in A Knight's Tale. When, when he dances to the Bowie. It's Fame and Golden Years.
I never liked that song until I saw that movie.
Okay, fair enough.
Golden Years.
Fair enough. Okay, so listen, we just got our warning. So guys, what we're going to do now is we're shifting away from Bowie. Time is fleeting. And we are each going to give our Mount Rushmore of classic rock, okay? There's 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. So if you could pick 4 artists, that can be solo or bands or whatever, 4 artists, that would be your Mount Rushmore of classic rock, who would they be? Now, does somebody want to go first, or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say it like this. For me, and you guys are free to disagree, for me, in order to be on the Mount Rushmore of classic rock, you had to have cut your first album before 1970, okay? So if you made your first album after 1970, you may be wonderful and you may have sold millions of records, but you didn't lay the foundation. The foundation was laid in the 60s. That's me.
You're here.
Does 1970 count?
I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I'm not gonna fight you over that. So that leads me to my picks, and they are the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and because I don't want this to be a British sweep, the Allman Brothers. I'm going with the Allman Brothers for my fourth pick. I honestly believe they deserve it. I believe they recorded their first album in 69. I believe the footprint that they left is worthy, but also they're American, so I'm pushing them. That's my four. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I'm very close to you, but it's Beatles, Zeppelin, Sabbath, and the Stones.
Here. That's mine.
Okay. All right.
And the Beatles, you don't need to explain that.
Right.
Zeppelin, no explanation needed. Sabbath, 1970. So that's why.
Fair enough. That's reasonable.
They also basically invented a whole genre of music.
You are correct. You are correct, and that alone probably cements their status and their legacy, because there was no such thing as heavy metal before Black Sabbath.
And the reason why I was borderline on the Stones, only for the fact that the other three bands, and you can debate whether Ozzy and Dio, if that's a different band when Dio joined, but for the most part, those, the first three bands, they only exist with the four members.
Correct.
And with the Stones, some people have left. Ron Wood was not an original member, so it's always been
murdered.
Kind of
can you make it for a murder?
What?
Brian Jones was murdered in a pool.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah.
So we might get a slight pass on that. Ron Wood,
Yeah, we'll give him a pass.
I know, but yeah, I mean it's a fair point, but. So I look at that, and then also think about it today. Like, most people know, if you name a member of those, if you're a music buff, they know every member of those four bands. But how many bands today can you say, I know who the bass player is of so-and-so?
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, one thing I want to talk about is Sabbath. I could. It's amazing how happenstance, luck, whatever, that Tony Iommi got his fingers cut off, the tips.
Yeah.
He had to do the D-toning. Steve could explain it. The drop D tuning, create a new type of sound. And here's something you two may not know. When that happened,
it wasn't just to be clear for technical people, it's not drop D tuning. He just detuned it by a couple of steps. So drop D is.
Yeah, but that was opened the door to the drop D, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when this happened to Tony Iommi, if you guys don't know, he worked in Birmingham as an industrial town, just like it is in Alabama and England. Got the tips of his fingers cut off on a machine. He was about to give up playing, and someone told him about this guy from Belgium, I think, named Django Reinhardt.
Right.
The same thing happened to him. His fingers got cut.
Okay, I didn't know that part.
He had to learn to play a different style. And Tony Iommi goes, "What?" There's the guy they're like, "Don't be making excuses, boy. This other guy can rip without his fingers too."
Yeah.
And so that guy is super talented, Django Reinhardt.
Yeah.
And so Tony Iommi, yep.
Wow, didn't know any of that. All right,
yeah.
Good stuff.
I did not know that. I mean, I knew the part about Tony Iommi, but not
the
other guy. So, but that's what gave him that sound, is because he had to detune it so it could make it easier to bend the strings and play.
I only knew that because Paul told me that years ago. I was like, wow, I didn't know any of that.
And it was
stuff.
like his last day of work at the whatever shop he was working at.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, like if I knew somebody, like you don't get to go near the equipment. Didn't you work at a sheet metal place, Kenny?
I did, yeah.
I knew that
summers.
Because that's why I told you that about Iommi. I'm
Probably.
like, you dead?
Probably, yeah.
You have all your fingers.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. So guys, listen, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Does anybody want to make a nomination for our classic rock, our hypothetical? If we could choose songs that classic rock radio doesn't play that they should, that's what we're shooting for here. Does anybody have any nominations?
Yeah, I'm going to go first.
Go ahead.
The band that never got us to do is called The Replacements.
Of course. Oh my God.
Really good band. Paul
Yeah.
Westerberg, Chris Marr. I forgot the other guy's names.
Kind of new wave though, don't you think?
Yeah, but I'm surprised Steve. That's a band I thought Steve would really like. I don't know if you.
I mean, they play 2 songs from them all the time on classic rock radio.
Like what? What?
This what's the I know the chorus. The secrets that you keep. They had
no,
yeah,
that's the Romantics.
No. It's the
The secrets
replacement.
that you keep when you talk in
No,
your sleep.
what I
That's
like
not the
about
song I'm
you is the
humming.
Romantics.
Huh?
What I like about you.
No, but they
Yeah, but also talking in your sleep. There's 2 songs. Yeah, but that's
By
not
the
the one I
Romantics.
was humming. I can't think of the name of it though.
but the Replacements, they're just it's not a band I would normally like,
Yeah.
but they just got into me and they are in me. And if you guys want to check it out, it's called Don't Tell a Soul, the name of the album by the Replacements.
Yeah.
They were starting that live and they were really good. I'm like, oh, this band's not so bad.
I thought that was a band with Keanu Reeves and Keith and I screwed it up. Gene Hackman.
You talking about the football movie and Gene Hackman on drums?
Right. Well, I only know a handful of their songs or replacements, but I think they're good. But I definitely put them into a new wave. But listen, we've talked before. Some bands get grandfathered in because over time, their music has stood the test of time and still sounds good and it rocks. So we go, okay, you know what? They deserve classic rock status, even though it wasn't originally, whatever.
All right,
so I'm not opposed to them.
Paul, did you give your 4 though? Or did you just agree with me?
Yeah, I agree with you. You took the words out of my mouth.
Okay.
Well,
now,
what he said, Steve, what he said was, I don't have an original thought of my own. So I'm just going to say what Steve said.
Well, since we have like 2 minutes left,
go ahead.
What if we do hard rock? Because I had 2 lists. One was classic rock and the other was hard rock.
All right, go ahead. Give it to us.
So very similar, but Zeppelin, Sabbath, then AC/DC and Metallica.
Okay.
Ooh.
I just
I'm going to agree with Steve again.
I'd switch out Van Halen for who knows? I don't know. AC/DC maybe. I don't know. But I'd switch Van Halen out with somebody.
All right, I'm agreeing with Kenny now.
I would say I'm flattered, but not really. So,
now,
okay.
Which version of Van Halen though?
Oh, hey, that's a great question right there. I'd probably go with version 1, but I loved both versions, so I don't want to.
I love Sammy Hagar, and it's a tie.
Yeah, it's a tie. Yeah, it's a tie.
I would go with number. I grew up on the
Van Hagar.
Sammy Hagar. Yeah. And then I discovered David Lee Roth, and I was like, okay, I get it. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. We're out of time. We're gonna wrap it up. So, but it was fun. Okay, so for now, that is the We Are the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
Yes, we thank you for watching. If you happen to be watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. Until we meet again, we'll see you next time.